This is an article. It says, "Is renting a waste of money?" Question mark. And it's written by Ramit Sethi, and he goes on in the article to talk about a variety of things. And he starts with, I know you've been told you're throwing your money away on rent. Someone in your life made you feel guilty for not buying a house and building equity. Let me guess, they said something like, I just hate paying someone else's rent. Well, what he meant was someone else's mortgage is what he really meant.
This is Las Vegas Real Estate Now with local real estate expert Harvey Blankfeld.
Yeah. You know, he doesn't even know what he's saying. Okay. So he says, let me ask you a question. Do you throw money away when you eat out at a restaurant? He's comparing it to going to a restaurant. Yeah. I have a little bit of a problem with that analogy, but anyway, he's talking about the idea. What he says is, you throw money away when you eat at a restaurant. Of course not. You're paying for value. Yet someone whose logically value falls apart when you apply it to real estate. I decided to run a poll. He ran a poll on real estate, and he asked his 11 friends to answer the question. And apparently 95% of them said no. They said, well, and the question was, I spent $30 on dinner in New York City. First of all, where did you get dinner in New York City for $30? I'd like to know that, first of all. Great food, great service, and I plan to go back in the future. Did I throw money? No, of course you didn't. $30. If I went to dinner for $30 in Schenectady, New York, I would think that's a great deal. But in New York City, oh my goodness, phenomenal. Well, he did get 651 votes. Okay, sorry, Rummy. Then he asked the same question for rent. I spent so much on renting an apartment in last month in New York City. Good location, good view. Apparently the perfect place to live. Yeah. Good location, good views, good roof over my head. I plan to keep renting. Do I throw money away? 81% agreed it's not throwing money away. You know what? I don't disagree either. If it's a great place and there's value in the rent, fine. And in New York City, I don't know what the market's like in New York City. I can't speak to that. I can't speak to that in general, but
what I hear in this article is, let me explain why I made my decision. Mm-hmm. Because that's how I value things, and that's the lifestyle I want to create. And there's so many other factors at play. I think the wrong question, this really triggers me, is I think people always asking the wrong question.
Yeah.
Is renting a waste of money? Should I buy now? Is now the right time for me to buy in the market? I think what you should be asking is, what is my wealth creation strategy?
Right. That's great.
That's the question to ask.
Yeah.
Because, okay, maybe it's real estate. Maybe it's not. Maybe somebody that's choosing to rent in New York City actually generates a ton of wealth in other ways and has access to things that other people don't have access to. And if you don't have access to those types of resources and opportunities to generate wealth, well, then maybe you should just pay for where you live.
Right.
And it's a risk management thing too.
Indeed, yeah. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say that buying a home is right for everybody. You guys, if you listen to the show, I don't profess that. But I do think it is something everybody should be considering and pencil it out. Now, he goes on to talk about the idea why people think that rent is a waste of money, and he calls it propaganda. And so he goes on to say, the powerful real estate lobby, the government, and our parents all tell us that real estate is the best investment of all. There are even government tax incentives to buy, repeat this for decades, and the population starts to believe blindly rather than run the numbers. Okay, look, the government doesn't create tax incentives to trick people into buying homes. They're encouraging home ownership because they know it's good for individuals to help build personal wealth. That's why they're doing it. It's not,
And encourages stability and humanity.
How about that? Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing. It's part, quote unquote, of the American dream. It's not propaganda. I'm sorry, that's a bad way to... I really hate that he phrases it that way.
Well, I love that he said run the numbers, because he has. I'd like to know what the rent has been for the last 10 years in New York City, and I'd like to know what he generated in wealth alternatively.
And I want to say something. I'm going to step a little bit away from this and just talk about one thing in general that affects me personally. I was never a good saver. I was never someone who could easily put money away. The money I got, I kind of spent. There's a lot of people in that boat. There's a lot of people out there who find it hard to set money aside on the monthly budget purely for investment. So what if that happened automatically? What if it just, instead of paying rent, you paid mortgage? Even if you're paying more for the mortgage, some of that money is going to pay down the mortgage. At the same time, appreciation in the house will help you grow personal wealth. As long as you're going to be there a while, you're going to be fine. Even in the worst of real estate conditions. I'm a realtor. I'm going to confess. I built my home in 2006. The worst possible time to buy a home in Las Vegas. And yet now I'm sitting pretty. I stayed there. I didn't sell it. Maybe I should have, but I didn't. I stayed there, and now we're sitting pretty because we've been there a while.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of it's I don't think it's a question of better return and let's run the numbers on that.
Right.
There's also the personal values of risk tolerance and personal challenges, just like you said. I mean,
Yeah.
do I easily save? I've had investors say, yeah, I could invest in stocks. I own some stocks. I got that in my retirement account. I got exposure to it. You have a little bit exposure to it, but not everybody needs a stock. And
Yeah.
generally, people need a place to sleep.
Exactly.
And so I like the stability of that
Yeah.
building over time
Right.
with less risk.
Yeah, and over time, it always goes up. He goes on to some numbers later that basically kind of defy what I'm knowing about real estate. But as I he's talking about New York appreciation rates. He's saying real estate in New York was a 3.8% return. I find that hard to believe. I don't know. I don't know their market. I know here it's a heck of a lot better than that. He does say something that I thought was interesting and appropriate. He says, sometimes on the TV shows you see, hey, I bought it for 400, I sold it for 500, 100,000 profit minus expenses. Well, expenses is a significant number a lot of times. And so, yeah, of that 100,000, maybe you spent 75 and you only really made 25, which is true. That's
Yeah.
true. But this is interesting too.
Do you want to?
Please, please, go ahead.
Because everything we were just talking about, he even admits it himself. While owning a home makes sense if the primary purpose is to live there.
How about that?
Literally makes sense because, and I've had people say, well, I want to buy a rental property. I'm like, do you own where you live yet? No, I rent, you know?
First, buy your own
That's
home.
if you can.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you literally can't because I'm choosing the lifestyle, I want to live in New York City in this area and I just can't afford to
Right.
buy this place, but I want this lifestyle, but I want to generate wealth through real estate in other places. But the other thing that's a little bit misleading on this investment comment is, okay, the S&P comes to 13% annual return versus New York's real estate 3.8%. Okay, 13% annual return on 100% of the cash that you have
Right.
to put in there. And it fails to note that you can use much less cash.
Mm-hmm.
You can leverage. You're getting 3.8% on the entire value of the real estate,
Right.
but you're only putting a portion of the cash when you finance it versus I have to use all that cash.
Yeah.
So you're actually getting return on the whole value.
Yeah.
And that's one of the factors I've heard real estate investors talk about. Say,
Yep.
look, I could buy a house with 20% down and, that's $60,000.
Yeah.
But I'm on a $300,000 home, but I'm earning the appreciation on all 300.
Yeah.
Whereas if I had 60,000 in stocks, I'm only earning it on the 60,000.
Great point.
So if I get 10% on my 60,000 in stocks, was that 6,000 a year?
Yeah.
If I get 5% on my 300,000, it's 15,000 a year.
Bingo. Great point. I think look, again, we don't disagree with the idea, pencil it out. I 100%, we always say that. Pencil it out, see what's best for you. Everyone's different, everyone's unique. Don't be afraid to sit down and pencil it out, but let's not say renting, quote unquote, is better than buying.